This movie was a horror masterpiece of 2023, not because it was actually scary, but more so because it was so scarily bad. Hello everybody, I'm Patricia, welcome back to my channel. I know, it's been a very long time. It's been a long time. It's been so long. Why did I do that? So, I'm back. Hopefully, I'm back for longer than I was last time, because goodness knows that last time was shameful. But I'm back. I hope that I'll be back for a long time. And my first order of business is to do reviews of everything that I wanted to talk about last year that I didn't. Which is why today we're talking about Five Nights at Freddy's. Fun fact, I just checked my calendar. I'm filming this on the 13th of January. Not Friday the 13th, but still. Yes, we're talking about Five Nights at Freddy's. And allow me to say, yes, I was a little harsh in the cold open with the whole it was so scary bad. But in my defense, I gotta say, I did not like the movie. I didn't really like it, and I thought that it was very subpar compared to a lot of its potential. So, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be talking about the three aspects of the movie that I don't like, which are the plot, the characters, and the lack of scares. And then I'm going to tell you what are some of my ideas on how the story could have been better. With all this in mind, I apologize if anybody is like, oh my god, another Five Nights at Freddy's hater. First and foremost, a lot of people don't like the movie, so why are we surprised? Like, everybody on the internet has said that Five Nights at Freddy's was bad. But more importantly, yes, this movie was bad, but it wasn't impossibly bad. There were a lot of things against it, yes, but there were quite a few things that I thought could have worked better if they had been rethought a little bit. So, hopefully, I help you guys understand why I didn't like this movie, and hopefully we'll see where we go from here. With all that in mind, this is my review of Five Nights at Freddy's. So the first thing we need to talk about is the plot, which would be easier if there was one. For the purposes of this video, and probably other videos that I'm going to do later, what I mean about the plot is this. The main character has a goal that they want to accomplish, and the plot is a series of events that make the goal possible or less possible. Okay? Good. So, what is Mike's main goal in this movie? He needs a job because he lost his previous one and he needs to take care of his sister. Alright? Fine. But the problem with that is that the minute, and I do mean the minute, he gets the job at the pizzeria, that is a point where that goal has already been accomplished. So, after that, what is there left to do? Well, we have the brother subplot that we need to resolve, but it doesn't feel like what happened with Mike's brother has anything to do with the animatronics. There are ways that it could have been done, but this is not it. And speaking of things that are not it, what is the story trying to be exactly? Because this is supposed to be a horror movie. Five Nights at Freddy's is based on a horror franchise, so that's supposed to be the main thing. But as the movie progresses, there aren't really a lot of scares. There is one scare at the beginning of the movie, which was not done very effectively, and I'll get to more on that later. And then, scares are very few and far between in this movie, which wouldn't be such a big problem if it was more of a sense of dread and anticipation of something more dangerous, but we don't really get that. In fact, when you think about it, the movie kind of plays its card really early. So, throughout the movie, the horror element doesn't go anywhere, so this ends up feeling more so like a family drama, which would have been fine if that was what the story was supposed to be. But again, we have the scenario where either we're focusing on the family or we're focusing on the animatronics. Again, there is one way to combine the two elements, but this is not it, and I'll get to what would be a better idea later. And then we have the characters. There are 5 characters worth mentioning, probably a couple more, but those are very minor characters. But the 5 characters that are worth talking about are dumb, assholes, or both. So let's start with Aunt Jane. Aunt Jane is a complete and total bitch, and this wouldn't be such a big problem if there was more to her. But honestly, in my opinion, I think that it would have worked better if she was much more sympathetic. There are a couple of ideas that are coming to my mind on how you could have had Aunt Jane be slightly antagonistic towards Mike without making her the bad guy, and I honestly would have preferred that story. I'll get to how I would have done it in a minute, but mostly it has to do with her wanting Abby for more altruistic reasons rather than for the selfish reasons that are implied but never shown, really. Not to mention, whose idea was it to make her motivation get the money? Like, anybody that has been a foster parent knows that safe money is crap compared to the cost of childcare. Sure, but speaking of childcare, Mike and Abby are not it. They are really, really bad as a brother and sister duo. For starters, individually, they are really bad. They're not really that great characters, or at least they're not that sympathetic. Mike, one of Mike's first instances is him beating up a relatively neglectful father. And while we're here, how did he not get sued for that? Or how did the mall not get sued for that? Or how many months has it, or for that matter, how long has it been between him getting fired and the start of the movie? I don't think it was that long, but I'll say that it might have been. But even then, one of the things that really puts me off to this character is the fact that he doesn't really care all that much about his little sister. Not that Abby's much better. Abby really, she's kind of unsympathetic. For starters, she has no personality. All she does is draw, which would be fine if we got an insight over what her drawings are supposed to be about. And I know that to a certain degree they're supposed to be about Mike, but at the same time, whenever they are together, they're just fighting, they're dismissive of each other, and Abby specifically does not have the charm to pull out being quiet but still an interesting character. She comes across rather aloof and disinterested in her brother, which I have heard theories that Abby is supposed to be portrayed as autistic, and if that was the intention, it might have worked. If the actress for Abby was autistic, that would have also been pretty cool, but one, we have no indication if that was the intention, and two, even if it was established as the intention in the script outside of the movie does not give me anything. And I will give a pass to the actress because, one, I know that she's really young. She is, if I remember correctly, isn't she the youngest? No, maybe the second youngest because the animatronics children are there, but yeah, she's still the youngest out of the characters that appear more often. Now, granted, I will admit, I probably would not have cared all that much about Abby and Mike's relationship being strained, except that around the time that I watched the movie, I also watched a video about Lilo and Stitch, and as a result, I watched a couple of clips from the movie, and oh my god, the two sisters are strained, but it's very clear that they care for each other. Nani has to be strict because those are her responsibilities, but she does allow Lilo to get a pet after she overhears Lilo's wish for an angel and a friend that would understand her. I remember watching that movie and never getting any sense that the two characters care for each other, that Mike and Abby cared for each other. Not until the very end of the movie, but it doesn't really work for me because all that happens after the shit that they went through, so it just felt weird. I mean, I am glad that they're on better terms with each other, but it kind of really felt like the movie gave me nothing until that point. And now let's talk about the villains, both of which suck. Now, let's start with Vanessa. Yes, I know. Vanessa is a victim as much as the kids are. In my opinion, arguably more so because the kids only died once. Vanessa had to go through this for many, many years. That said, that does not make me like her anymore. For starters, she gives exposition that, in my opinion, would have worked better if Mike had gotten all that information by himself. Things like what happened in the 80s with the disappearance of the children. Hypothetically, there's also the bite of 87, but to my understanding, the disappearances and the bites has nothing to do with each other. I don't really understand it, and I don't even remember what the bite was, so my main problem with Vanessa is that she's very ineffectual as a character, not to mention a bit confusing. Okay, so William Afton told his daughter, hey, you need to go to this place and kill these guys if they get too much information. But why? It would have been, in my opinion, much easier if William had gotten Vanessa to leave the police force and then told her, hey, you gotta work at the pizzeria. Wouldn't that have been much easier and much simpler rather than killing a guy every other month? And now, we're talking about William Afton. And I apologize for saying this, but somebody has to say it. William Afton is the worst character in the movie. There, I said it! Come at me, internet! I know that this character is arguably the most recognizable name in the whole series. Like, there are several characters, and almost all of them are in some way, shape, or form connected to William Afton. I have to say it. William Afton is not a good character. There are three main problems with him. One, I do not understand his motivation. Now, granted, it's not always obligatory for characters to have their motivations known. I can think of quite a few examples of characters that are known for being mysterious, but at the same time intriguing. William Afton is not one of those characters. And for me personally, there is no inherent horror in him or Matthew Lillard's performance to compensate for that. Don't get me wrong, Matthew Lillard is giving it his all for such a thin character, but there really isn't much to work with. And part of the reason, I think, is because Matthew Lillard isn't really in the movie all that much, which is problem number two. Matthew Lillard only appears, if I remember my notes correctly, he only appears in the first 21-ish minutes of the movie, and then he doesn't appear until the very end, and which was not a very smart decision. Why was he there? What was happening that he needed to control the animatronics? Or was he going after Mike? But why was he going after Mike? He doesn't know anything about the connection between William Afton and Garrett. So, why was he there in the first place? What compelled him to go? This is, yeah, we're going back to the motivation thing. His actions are so stupid that I can't help but question it. And another similar thing. Why did he hire Mike in the first place? More importantly, why does he hire any security guards in the first place? Why not keep the place bolted, locked down, and away from prying eyes? I mean, sure, he says that is for sentimental reasons, although I have a theory, but we can't prove it yet. I would like to know more. But if you're so worried that people are going to find out more about the dead bodies and their connection to the animatronics, why hire anybody to get close to the bodies? See, this is the problem with the script. It is so bad that Matthew Lillard is not compensating for anything. You know what's bad when Matthew Lillard has nothing to work with. He is Tim Curry as Frankenfurter. You see him and he's an utter delight, but then you try to get into the script and there's nothing to work with. He is the only person that could have made it work, and he doesn't make it work. He does make it watchable, but oof, did he have nothing to work with. And speaking of nothing to work with, William Afton does nothing in this movie. He is an absolute failure. The only thing that he does in this movie is to hire Mike as a security guard, which, again, why would he do that? Why would he put somebody so close to the crime scene that he is directly responsible for? And also, while we're here, why hire any security guards, why not use the animatronics as the security? According to Vanessa, William Afton is controlling the animatronics, so why not, instead of hiring people that are disconnected to the crime such that they could easily sell you out, why not simply have the animatronics be the people taking care of the security? It might even be just as good as an idea is if instead of Mike being hired by William Afton to work at the place, Mike breaks in because he realizes that there's something missing about his brother. I'll get more into that idea later, at least a part of it. But honestly, William Afton is a terrible villain. There are so many stupid decisions that he makes, and he's not intriguing enough to compensate for it. I don't care if I'm being controversial. I'm sorry. I can only tell you the truth, and that's how I feel. William Afton sucks. But now it's time to talk about the horror elements of this movie. You probably noticed that I didn't really talk much about the animatronics in the character section, and that's because they're not characters so much as plot devices, and even then they're terrible plot devices. As I previously mentioned, the animatronics have almost absolutely nothing to do with Mike's family's issues, so the two parts of the story are competing with each other. There are almost no horrors from the beginning of the movie to the end of the movie. I think that there are only three parts of the movie that go into horror, which are the very beginning, when they break into Freddy Fazbear's, and at the climax, and, well, arguably also when we see that William Afton isn't actually dead, which, that was good. I'll admit, that was good. But at the same time, those were very few and far between. I will admit, my favorite part of the movie was when they broke into Freddy Fazbear's and they got destroyed. I have heard a couple of complaints of people that, oh my god, why didn't they make this R-rated? They could have made this R-rated. We could have seen the blood, the horror, and the gore. Which, yeah, it is kind of surprising that they didn't go so all in with the horrific elements, especially because the whole thing in the games is that if you get caught by the animatronics, you get stuffed into it, and because you're being stuffed into the animatronics with the animatronic skeleton, you get crushed to death. And in fact, I even have a couple of ideas on how to make the scares more effective in this movie, but I'll get to that later. That said, I don't mind the fact that we don't get to see most of the kills, especially because I do agree with the idea that it's not what you show, it's what you don't show that matters. We know that people are dying, that they're getting killed, but we don't get to see it, and that makes it scarier and more fun. But again, so few and far between that I personally kind of feel like I can enjoy it. Not to mention the fact that it almost feels like the main characters have plot armor. Okay, so at one point in the movie, I think that it was during the second night, Mike falls asleep again. You're falling asleep in a job. Dude, remember, you need the job. Mike fell asleep in the job, and then we get to see, through the silhouette, that Foxy is making his way to the office. And for some reason, he doesn't kill Mike. What do you mean that you didn't kill Mike? Why didn't you kill Mike? You were right there. The movie even kind of implies that, what was that when Mike got attacked in his dream, it was because he was being attacked by Foxy. But then why didn't Foxy finish the job? Why not kill Mike? Or why not send him to the room so that he could get stuffed into the animatronics? It really makes no sense. I do not get it. Whose idea was that? But even though I do admit that I like the majority of the scary scenes, such as they are, I don't love them all. Two of my least favorite are the very beginning and Max's death. At the very beginning, we get the security guard who's trying to who has put a whole pile of chairs pushing against the door, which raises the question: how did Mike get into the same security room, or did he not get into the same security room? In which case, why is there more than one? But anyway, we see that happening. We see Mike escape. We see the security guard escaping, and then the security guard is just screaming the whole time. He's screaming so much. He's screaming so often that it's off-putting. It's like, Just kill the bitch already. Just end my suffering and just kill the bastard. And then we have Max's death. First and foremost, I think that it's a terrible idea for Max to see the ghost inside Golden Freddy, but I'll elaborate more on that later. But more importantly, I did not like just how dumb it was. For starters, the majority of the scenes that came before them when everybody else was being picked up and killed, those were done pretty good. When the cupcake attacked, when Bonnie was the one who attacked the guy in the closet, that was also really good. I really enjoyed it. Again, it's not about what you see, it's about what you don't see. And then when the final guy was trying to escape through the back door, but he meets up with Foxy and he got gutted. I think he got gutted. I don't know what happened to him, but we know he died. And then Max, what happens to Max is that Max sees the ghost inside Golden Freddy, follows the ghost, meets up with Golden Freddy, and approaches the Golden Freddy costume. And then the ghost picks up Max's head, puts her head inside the animatronic, and that's how we get the bite of 2023. Are you kidding me? You mean to tell me that the rest of the murders were quick, swift, and very easily dealt with, but this murder, the only reason why Max died is because she was following this kid who she doesn't know, this kid who she's not worried about. Now, she went in specifically to look for her brother. Okay, brother, where are you? What are you doing? You were supposed to finish this like half an hour ago or sometime. You're supposed to wrap this up. Let's go. Why are you following this kid that has absolutely nothing to do with your brother? In fact, if I remember correctly, wasn't Golden Freddy kid supposed to be saying that it was just a game? Which is like, hey, kid, sorry, but I'm busy. Find another person. Ugh, that was so dumb. That's basically my main issue with this movie. This movie is really dumb. There are a lot of dumb decisions, and just as badly, it's not nearly horrific enough. Again, this wouldn't be such a big problem if the promotional material hadn't made it look horrific. Like, I can still remember one of the promos where we're getting close to Mike's face being sawed off by the mask. Like, hello? That's what I was going for. Now, granted, I admit, it would have been very difficult to sustain that level of dread for... How long was this movie? An hour 40, 50, give or take? It wasn't really that long a movie, but... For me, it was just boring, because my favorite parts of the movie were when they were killing off people, or when they were threatening to kill off people. And my personal least favorite scene in the movie is the scene where they're building the forts, because it emphasizes a problem. We're trying to focus on something that has nothing to do with this. With this, Mike is trying to focus on, hey, what happened to my brother? And then the animatronics are there, but Mike's brother is not in the animatronics, so why are these two stories connected? It's just so many dumb decisions. I have heard the movie being accused of being overstuffed, and I think that what happened here, well, first and foremost, allow me to recognize the movie had no chance in hell. I never played the games, I'm not a part of the community, I'm an outsider, but I do, if I remember correctly, the first game, and for that matter, a big percentage of the games, don't really have a plot. They just have the premise of, it's Five Nights at Freddy's. You have 5 nights, I gotta survive them to make it to the end. In fact, if I remember correctly, I remember reading somewhere that you can finish the game from start to finish in an hour. But this isn't God of War, where you have a lot of material and a lot of different side quests. This isn't even like the Mario movie that, yes, it has a relatively simple plot, but at least it has a plot. Here, you had to build the plot from the ground up. And with that in mind, I will give a pass to the movie because I know how extremely difficult it must have been. But I think that they could have done a better job. And here are some of my ideas. Number 1, Mike's brother should have been one of the children inside the animatronics. I think it was a terrible idea to have Mike's brother's disappearance happen outside of the pizzeria, because the whole focus is supposed to be what happens in the pizzeria, but because Mike's brother died away from the pizzeria, we're now splitting focus between in the pizzeria and outside of the pizzeria, and it would have been much better if he had died inside it. Right now, let's go to the second idea that I have, which is Abby should have been a medium. I think that I was watching a video about somebody reacting to Paranorman. So with that in mind, I think that that's part of where I got the idea. For those of you who don't know, a medium is a person who is recognized to have the ability to communicate with the dead or the undead. Again, in Paranorman sees ghosts. There's the series with, I forgot her name, but it's called Ghost Whisperer. And there are other stories similar to that. There's Ghost, I think. Ghost, is that the name? About the movie with Patrick Swayze. And there are many other examples, but suffice it to say, I think that would have worked very well. I mean, sure, you could have still made it that Abby is autistic. That would have required this movie to have gone in a different direction, but if you have made it work, congratulations on making it work. That said, I think that if you don't want to go in the direction of Abby having some sort of diagnosable psychological disorder, her being a medium would also work well. This is what I mean when I say that Max should have never seen the ghost. Leaving aside the fact that it is completely stupid for her to follow the ghost in the first place, I think that should have been something that Abby was special for. In fact, I even have this idea of what if Mike himself is also a medium, and in my version of events, that would be how he finds out that Garrett is one of the animatronic children. But more importantly, that would also explain a lot of Abby's issues. Why Abby has a lot of issues socializing, because she prefers the dead, or maybe she has a couple of undead friends and she wants to talk to other people about those friends, but either they dismiss the ghosts as imaginary friends, or they are actively spooked by her, or people are actively spooked by her, both of which make her feel isolated and therefore more socially dependent on the ghosts. Maybe that would be a reason why Mike started taking pills, because he started seeing the ghost of Garrett everywhere, but he would also have believed that was his own conscience messing with his head and making him feel guilty, so he tries to repress it. And that would be something that I would like to play with. As I mentioned, on Jane, I would have preferred her if she was more sympathetic, and this is a way to make her more sympathetic, while at the same time not completely destroying Mike. Mike became dependent on pills and self-medicating. Maybe he doesn't even realize that he's talking to ghosts until he starts talking to Abby and starts realizing, oh, that makes more sense now. I mean, Whoopi Goldberg's character in Ghost didn't know that she was a medium until she met Patrick Swayze, so it wouldn't be the craziest thing ever. Not to mention, ghost children inside animatronics, we already passed the threshold of crazy here. Go all in, please. I would really like to have this scene in the movie. In an alternate universe, maybe this is the scene where how it happens in the movie, that Abby can see ghosts, but sometimes she doesn't see the ghosts, she only feels presences, and those presences can be very overwhelming, especially depending on the emotions that the ghosts or the undead are supposed to represent. So maybe the animatronic children are angry or sad, and she feels overwhelmed by all of those emotions. And that would also be a way for her to connect. The movie doesn't really emphasize on it. It emphasizes mostly on Mike's pain of losing his brother, but Abby lost her mother, she lost her father, she's at risk of losing her brother to a guardian that, at least in her own mind, doesn't care about her. I still maintain that there is absolutely no evidence to suggest that Aunt Jane is that awful. She's a bit bitch. No, actually, I just remembered, she was the one that sent the people to trash the place, so, yeah. I still don't get why she did it, though. is really stupid. But I really would have wanted Mike and Abby to be mediums. So in fact, that would be the climax of the movie, in my opinion. Mike realizing that Golden Freddy is Garrett's. Seriously, whose idea was it to have a character suffer a death in this movie and not have the death be related to one of the animatronics? But speaking of increasing the horror element, that's my third thing. I want the animatronics to kill more people. I don't expect us to see all the blood and horror and gore from it. The scenes that we got were perfectly fine, and we didn't directly see anybody die. That was perfectly fine, that's perfectly acceptable, I have no problem with this. But I do think that we should have gotten more of that. Hell, I think that, for example, the fourth scene could have worked pretty well if we had gotten the underline of, we know that these characters are dangerous, and they could snap at any moment. But the problem with the fourth scene is that it happened in night 4, and Abby interacted with the animatronics in night 3 in a positive manner. So the fourth scene doesn't really matter because there's no tension there, and again, the movie is really not about the animatronics, and it should have been. In fact, remember that I said that the animatronics children were kidnapped and killed? So let's work with that a little more. As I mentioned, Abby, when she first enters the pizzeria, she would know that there are ghosts there, but she doesn't see the ghosts. She would only feel their presence, anger, grief, resentment. What if the reason behind that is because they miss their parents? They miss their parents, they are lonely. There's at least one version in my head that I'm thinking that, what if the animatronic children, they inhabited the animatronics their bodies were stuffed in, but they didn't know about each other? What if it is only recently that they got the ability to move back? So what if their bodies didn't have the electrical juice before, until William Afton decided, hey, I need this place again, so I'm going to give electricity to this place. That is how they start to move, because before that, the animatronic children, I know that I'm probably saying it wrong, but I'm still going to go with it, I'm sorry. What if what was happening there is that the children inside the animatronics were just trapped inside the animatronics, and that them being in complete darkness and unable to move to whatever afterlife exists, if any, what if they were limited in their field of vision? So effectively, the animatronics did not know about the existence of the other ghosts. What if they thought that they were all alone, and them being conscious but also unable to move and unaware of the presence of other people? That's a really terrifying idea. That's a really psychologically horrific idea. It's very low-key damaging, and I am salivating over the idea. It would be so good. But once they get the juice back, once they get the ability to move their bodies, well, that's when they decide to go on the rampage. I actually even kind of like the idea, what if the animatronic children go looking for their parents, and their parents are either dead or they have moved on? What if they don't like what they see and they kill their parents? And that's basically what I'm trying to think here. What if the reason why the animatronic children kill is because they want somebody to replace their parents? Think about it this way. The reason why the animatronic children befriend Abby is to stuff her into the animatronic skeleton. So I'm thinking, what if that's what they wanted to do with the other security guards? What if they are constantly looking around at the security guards, at anybody who passes by, and they're determining, okay, what is this person going to do? How is this person going to act? Would they be a good father figure? Would they be a good mother figure? What would they do? Every time that somebody new goes in, they look around. They see, okay, what is happening here? Who is this person? Is this person going to be a good... And then after a couple of nights, they make their decision. And either way, it's fatal. Sometimes they will not approve of the new security guard or of the person who broke in or whoever was allowed in, and they will be like, no, I do not approve of this person to be a part of our family. This person's gonna die. Or, what if they approve of the person? What if they say, yes, this person has been accepted into the animatronic family, and they stuff the person into the animatronics? But, because we know what happened with the animatronics, the spring lock suit crushes the person from inside of the suit, and with no way to escape, the person would have nothing to do but die. And then they realize the process that allowed them to be reincarnated into the animatronics did not work with this person. So now they have to start all over again. So they kill more, and then they get disappointed, which just reinforces their grief, their anger, their loneliness, their desire to get a mom and a dad back. Forget horrific, it's incredibly sad. And I would have liked to have seen more of that. It would have been a really cool idea. Anyway, I think that I talked about this more than enough. Let's go on to the next part. My fourth recommendation, no William Afton. There, I said it. But more importantly, I think that William Afton could have worked. One, if we knew him more as Steve Raglan. In fact, in my personal opinion, I think that what could have worked is if not only Aunt Jane being more sympathetic, but Aunt Jane dating Steve Raglan, and Steve immediately telling him, hey, I could get you a job at the pizzeria. So we see him more, we get to see how he relates to the family. Maybe even we know Steve Raglan before we hear of William Afton, and it's only until the end of the movie that we find out that William Afton and Steve Raglan are the same person. That would have worked really well, and that would have made the betrayal more potent, especially coming into the second movie. In fact, in my personal opinion, you could have Vanessa A working willingly with him. I know that she might be a victim of abuse. Actually, the way that I see it, I personally would prefer it if William Afton and Vanessa were not father and daughter. In fact, I think that I would have liked Vanessa more if she was the sister of one of the victims too. But that might be a little convoluted, so I don't know. You guys tell me if that was a good idea or not. But back to William Afton, I think, i.e. the person I'm supposed to be talking about, I don't think that he should be the villain of the first movie. It is okay if you want to make him the villain of the second movie, or if you want to go so far, the villain of the third movie. William Afton alive as the villain of the second movie, and William Afton as Springtrap as the villain of the third movie before he gets incinerated inside the arcade, right? But, in my opinion, the main villain of the first movie should have been the animatronics. I think that the animatronics, especially with the animatronics children being ghosts, and one of those ghosts being Garrett, that would have carried more than enough tension. And again, I am aware that probably what happened was that Scott Cawthon, the creator of the games, was afraid that there wasn't going to be a second movie, so he wanted to cram in William Afton in the first movie. But again, I think that was a terrible decision, because we don't see enough about William Afton, and more importantly, William Afton does jack shit in this movie. So instead, build him up until the second movie, have Vanessa be his dragon. For those of you who don't know, the dragon trope is there's a big bad, and then there's a second in command. The dragon is the main villain second in command. So Vanessa would be the dragon. Maybe she earns her redemption in the second movie. Maybe she doesn't. I don't know. You guys tell me what you would prefer. And then William Afton becomes the main villain in the second movie, and then he gets resurrected and becomes the main villain of the third movie. Since we're already talking about family trauma, that might be the main motivation for Vanessa. She lost her sister, and maybe she was made aware of the experiments that allowed the ghost children to inhabit the animatronics, and she wants William Afton to do the same with her so that she can be with her sister or her sibling. I don't think that's a terrible idea. Let me know, you guys, what you think. And then the fifth thing, in my opinion, that I think could have made this work. Now, granted, I don't know how to proceed with this, but in my opinion, Five Nights at Freddy's should have been a mystery. I think that would have worked so well, because Five Nights at Freddy's also, the movie ultimately is about what happened to Mike's brother. Now, if you know the games, it's obvious what happened to him, but if you don't know the game, this would have been a really good opportunity to squeeze some juice into it. One thing to remember about Five Nights at Freddy's is that the games themselves are relatively plotless. What you have to do is to survive the night. Basically, when you think about it, there are no goals in the series except don't die. But the problem is that the movie doesn't make the survival aspect well enough, and the main goal, as I mentioned, is finished in the first half hour, so we're left just spinning our wheels until we get to the William Afton fights. And I think that that would have made it work. Have Mike be motivated to investigate what happened with his brother. That's why either he accepts the job or he breaks in to the store after hours. In fact, I even think that's how Garrett as Golden Freddy becomes so dangerous. He sees somebody who reminds him of his brother in the first two nights, and then he notices, oh wait, this is my brother. Oh wait, this is actually Mike. And then he continues moving throughout the night. He starts trying to take care of his brother. Maybe that's what he's doing. He's taking care of his brother. And then in night number 3 or night number 4, no, I think it would be night number 4, in order to make it the 5 nights. What would happen is that Mike comes to the pizzeria with Abby, and then Garrett would realize, wait, Mom and Dad had another sibling? Did they forget about me? Did you, Mike, forget about me? Abby, you're an imposter? And that basically is what happens. Once the animatronics activate for the 5th night, Golden Freddy goes after Abby. And then, instead of trying to put her in the animatronic suit, he actively tries to kill her. Maybe him being the leader, he's also influencing the other kids to go after Abby. Abby's terrified. Mike comes to the rescue, and then Mike, because he'd been detoxing, mind you, I forgot to tell you, in my idea, I think that what happens is that Mike got arrested for drug possession and drug use. Did I mention that? I don't know, just in case I didn't mention it. And he gets for drug possession, maybe drug possession with intent to distribute, or maybe public intoxication. But because of his promise to Aunt Jane to be a better older brother for Abby, he starts detoxing. And after all of the alcohol, all of the drugs has left his system, he finally starts seeing the ghost children clearly, and then he realizes, oh shit, one of them is Garrett, and then Garrett screams at him. Maybe he's overwhelming him with all of the negative emotions. Maybe he's overwhelming Abby with all the negative emotions. And then, I don't really know how to conclude this, but something would happen. Maybe Mike reveals what happens, how guilty he feels, and how sorry he is to Garrett. And Garrett, in turn, as a peace offering, not only lets Abby go, but also tells Mike the name of the guy who kidnapped and killed him, William Afton, which is not a name anybody is familiar with, but, well, we are familiar with the name, but the characters in the movie are not familiar with the name. And then the animatronics deactivate for the night. Okay, so in my opinion, Mike getting the job at the pizzeria is more so a temporary job, a job to build up his resume while he's looking for something else, and that's exactly what happens. He finds it, after everything that happens, he finds another job, but he also promises Garrett to come back in the future to make so that his brother doesn't feel like he's been forgotten. And then, in one of the final scenes of the movie, Steve Raglan appears, Mike gives the key and the uniform back, whatever uniform there is, if there's any uniform. And then Steve goes inside, and then unlocks a secret compartment that leads him to a laboratory or something. I'm still trying to figure out the kinks, but this is basically the main idea. And then we see the name William Afton. Well, that could happen. Or No, actually, I'm thinking of a different version. He would go into the pizzeria, and then Mike would go to the police. He would call upon Vanessa, tell Vanessa what he's learned about the missing children, and Vanessa would take it in, but she wouldn't respond in any surprising manner until Mike says the name William Afton, which makes Vanessa's eyes glow up. Maybe you could have it also that Vanessa has appeared here and there in the movie, that she's just doing the rounds, and sometimes she goes into the pizzeria for nostalgic reasons or whatever. Maybe she even has a pizza, because pizza at a pizzeria, obviously. So she and Mike start to get along, and then when Mike finds out that she's a police officer, she tells him everything that happened, and maybe later Mike says, "Hey, would you like to go out? My ex-girlfriend kind of got cut out of my life, so I was thinking, would you like to get some pizza later?" Kind of coy, but... And then Vanessa says yes, Mike leaves, and then Vanessa goes into her desk. She starts looking for the name William Afton, and then she calls William Afton. The phone rings. We get to see the person answering the phone in silhouette first, and then the person turns towards the camera, and it's Steve Raglan, and we realize, oh shit, he knows. And that's the setup for the second movie, where William Afton and Vanessa become the main villains, and then we find out later what happens, and then later, through a series of events, William Afton dies, comes back as Springtrap, and then we continue on with the third movie, ending with the destruction of the animatronics, Springtrap, and the pizzeria, and the animatronic children, rising to the afterlife, hoping to be reunited with their parents. That is the ending. It's pretty scattershot. I would 100% admit it's very bare bones, and I don't think I did a very good job coming up with a plot. Hell, I don't think that this came up with a plot. I do think it's better, or in the very least, more of my taste. You guys can decide, hey, I like your ideas, but I would take it in a different direction, or I don't like this idea, please disregard it altogether. My final thoughts on the movie are this. As I previously mentioned, this movie had no freaking chance in hell of being good. It could be a good adaptation, it could be a good movie, but it could not be both, because the video games do not have a plot. It has a situation that you have to survive, but the problem with that is that it's a very passive story. That is exactly what happened here. Mike is at worst violent and at best passive. Abby just gives me nothing, and a lot of characters have their potential underdeveloped. The story is split into two different ideas that don't work together, and the horror elements are severely lacking for a story that was marketed as a horror story. That said, given the fact that I came up with all those different ideas, I do believe that there is potential in the story, but it really needed a better hand to come up with the plots and a better creative vision. I don't think this is the worst story ever. I did give this 1.5 stars when I reviewed it on Letterboxd, but in hindsight, I think that was a little harsh. I think that the general consensus on Letterboxd is a 2.7, give or take. And yeah, I think that that's appropriate. I think that it's more of 2 than a 3, but that's just my personal opinion. You guys tell me, what do you think about this movie? What do you think about this review? I'm trying to get back at the groove on things, so thank you very much for watching this. Subscribe if you want to see more. I know that I'm not good at making that promise, if my record's any indication, but I am going to try this year, and hopefully you will see more of me, and I will see more of you. Thank you very much. I will see you later.